Welcome to the enchanting world of the Never Cross a Witch Bitch podcast. Prepare to be captivated as we embark on a thrilling journey into the realm of spirituality with our remarkable team of a distinctive energy mixture. Leading the way is Mitch Garlington, a gifted gay male witch, touring stage medium, and psychic tarot card reader. With a background in the competitive corporate world and experience as a Cher impersonator, Mitch brings a fresh and unique perspective to our discussions. Next, we have Lucy Locke, a former fundamentalist Christian missionary turned sex shop manager turned professional dog groomer turned psychic medium, trance channeler, and tarot card reader. Her incredible transformation into the spiritual world is truly inspiring. And last, but certainly not least, we have Carly Batten, a second-generation practicing pagan, intuitive oracle card reader, and spiritual mother to many. Carly brings a grounded approach and simple understanding to the complexities of spiritual living. Together, we form an unstoppable podcast as we delve into all things spiritual and the journey of life. Our mission is crystal clear: to spread the message that spirit embraces all and that each of us is on a spiritual path, whether we realize it or not. So buckle up and get ready for an exhilarating adventure with the Never Cross a Witch Bitch podcast. Please note that all ideas discussed and presented in this podcast are the personal opinions of the individual podcasters and do not necessarily reflect the views of each other or the viewers. Hi there, and welcome to another podcast of Never Cross a Witch Bitch. This is what, our third or fourth now?
This is a fourth.
Oh, wow. It shows something when we're losing count of how much fun we're having. Today's podcast, we've had a lot of recommendations in the background of talking about witchy things and witchcraft. And yeah, we've been discussing beforehand of different things that we could talk about, but I think it's a subject that we all love. And I think we're just going to chat away and see where it takes us. So, let's talk to the master male witch right now. Mitch, do you want to get us started? And then we'll go to the second generation pagan after that.
Okay, let's start it like that. Yeah, so for me, witchcraft is an interesting subject matter because I actually have always felt from a really young age that I was a witch, like as sort of almost like from about the age of like 2 or 3, I felt magic within my kind of blood. And I suppose it was not how to put it into words, that was more forthright than my sexuality or understanding mediumship or any of that. I just came into this world feeling very much like I was a witch, and I do feel it stems from past lives and sort of things I've done before, and almost relearning the energies and bringing it back into this lifetime. And for me, magic is such a personal thing, so there's no right or wrong way. And for me personally, I just think magic with a moral compass. There has to be reason, there has to be understanding of why you're doing whatever you're doing. I never understand these people that sort of use magic to hurt or harm. For me, that's pointless. Why waste your resources in that way? So for me, magic is an extension really of healing, to be honest. There's so much healing that can come through from magic or personal empowerment. So that's my sort of take on being a witch, or how I use my magic. Having said that, though, I kind of class myself as a bit of a rainbow witch. So if someone was coming at me in a darker space, I will go into the darker magic if I need to, but it's not my first point of call. It's only sort of to defend, I suppose, protection magic. But for me, it's all about empowerment, enriching someone's life. And I think, like I say, with magic, there's so many ways you can do it. There's so many titlings. Back in the day, it felt like being a witch was just a witch, whereas now, me and Carly were talking about this the other day. You got your green witch, your kitchen witch, your bloody, I don't know, frothy witch. There's all this different stuff, and it's just kind of like, what actually is a witch, I suppose. And for me, it is just being a healer, really. And it's being aware of the energy of the earth, the plants, nature, the world around us, not taking anything for granted, giving back to Mother Earth and all she holds dear. It's all of that, really, isn't it? For me. But Carly might have a different approach, or you guys both might have a different approach to it.
And I'm completely with what Mitch is saying, obviously I'm pagan, and the word pagan actually sort of means anything else that isn't Christian. It's a word that was given out that wasn't Christianity. So if you weren't a Christian, then you were pagan. And obviously modern times has then derived it into what we've got now. And obviously you've got the other things like Wicca, and which is quite a modern following.
Yeah, because that's only from the 50s, isn't it, really? Wicca.
That's about the 1950s it came around.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's quite a modern, and it's now been started to recognized to be a religion.
Oh, okay.
And I do that. Sorry, quotes. But it's now been recognized as a religion or following, really. But the old word apparently Wiccan means the old, I think it's Old English word for witch.
Okay.
But as we know, witch is also was a term used. We're going back to witch hunting times and things like that. But that's for a further on conversation.
That would be a lovely.
But what we're
podcast.
talking about,
I want to study up on that a bit. That'd be awesome.
Where the terminology of what witch and the sort of what it was all about to start with. But for me, personally, same sort of thing as Mitch. I remember, this is going to sound really twee, but I remember, do you remember George's Marvelous Medicine with Ronald Dahl?
Yeah.
And he's George is making the medicine in the pot. He's got a miserable old granny, isn't she? And she's really grumpy, and he wants to make her this medicine. So he puts everything in it, all the stuff that you shouldn't put in from the cupboard, and toothpaste and something else. And he gives it to her, and she whooshes up into the air and goes whip, pop, bang, and all sorts of wonderful things. And I remember reading that, and I think I was about, I don't know, I must have been about 7 or 8. And I remember rummaging through the cupboards and making my own George's Marvelous Medicine in an old saucepan. I didn't feed it to my grandmother, I hasten to add. But but I remember stirring it and that whole feeling. It sounds really weird, but look back on it now. But the whole feeling of feeling that was right. And, feeling quite magical doing it, and always... I don't know, I always felt like I could talk to the trees, or put the wishes out there. I've always wished on a star, or blown a dandelion clock and shut your eyes and make a wish, and putting those good intentions in. I've always felt older in my years. So I've always felt, I used to look at my friends around me, especially when I was a teenager, and look at them and think, what are you doing? And I'd feel a lot older than I actually am, but I also feel there was more to me than what there was stood in front of me. And I regularly would ask the question to myself, why am I seeing this life through these eyes? I feel like I was something else, but I was something else with that magic and that intention, and it's always felt really special to me. And I don't mean this in an egotistical way, but I always felt like if I put it out there and I put the magic into it, it would happen. Short of going.
Our strongest magic is that of our own, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. So I feel like if I put that out there, it would, short of me sort of, the lightning coming out my fingers, having a Harry Potter moment. That's what it felt to me. It felt that strong. And when I work with the craft, I put myself in the witch bracket because it's easy for people to understand in the common way of life at the minute. But I feel more it's a wise woman, a healer, somebody that you would have gone to sort out your toothache, birth a baby, lay somebody up when they died, help them heal a headache, they've got a infected toenail, that type of thing. So it's always, that's what my witchcraft is to me. Very in tune with the elements. The season changes. I work more with the season changes. I got a real thing about the moon. Amount of times, I'll stand in the field and look at the moon and just stand there, looking a bit gormless, but loving every minute. But that's.
You're going to say you dance around naked under the moon, then?
I could
Don't.
totally
Lucy
see you
said
doing
that the other day.
I don't imagine you dancing. Like, I don't imagine you naked, but I could just see your silhouette dancing around naked or totally.
Shake it,
Oh no,
baby.
Exactly.
Chrome years.
I see more of a like
a bit, you know.
like
um, but yeah. So it means to me, it means putting that intention out there, all for the greater good, helping people where I can, but mainly is help and healing. That's my craft, is help and healing, and giving people the tools, whether it's a hug, a confidence, a crystal in their hand, some advice, somewhere to sit, just giving people the tools to heal themselves. And to me, that is what all the magic is all about. Sometimes there's a little bit extra in there, you know, you'll ask little universe for little extra bits and pieces if you need it. But that's the main of my underlining craft is helping people. But I touch on everything. So I touch on the herbalism side, the aromatherapy side, the crystal side, the element side. You know, occasionally ask for spirits to come in and just give me a bit of confidence. Do you know what I mean? It touches on everything. So that's why I class myself more as, you know, wise woman of the village, you know, live in a little hut on my own, you know, with my cats or something.
like a crow. I could totally see it.
How about you, Lucy? What is witchcraft to you, or have you embraced your witchcraft?
Well, that's something I was just going to say. It's something I guess, yeah, it's something that I haven't fully embraced. It's something that I'm needing to figure out a little bit more before I fully embrace it. I dabble, but to me, witchcraft and being a witch is working with spirit, working with energy. So if I were to classify myself as any kind of witch, I guess it would be like an energy witch and possibly like healing witch. For me, it goes with psychology too, which is really weird, but I feel like spirit and science are going to start. Well, I feel like spirit is already matched up with science, but science is going to match up with spirit pretty soon. And so that stuff kind of intrigues me too, of how I don't know how to explain it, watching the patterns of energy and how we think and how we feel emotions and all that kind of stuff. So for me, like learning about intention, that was a huge one for me. I think I've manifested since I was quite young, both negative and positive. And I never ever realized my power was taken away quite young, or not taken away, but like really subdued, where I thought having your own personal power was really wrong. And anyone that did that was very arrogant and, you know, that kind of thing. And that spirit was out of you. Does that make sense? God was over here and you're here and you're just praying all the time that nothing bad happens to you. And if something bad happens to you, you're like, oh my God, what was that lesson? What I've done so wrong, that kind of thing. And my witchiness is more coming in, realizing that spirit flows through all.
Yeah.
And so spirit is like taking me on this journey of embracing my witchiness. So for me, years ago, I was in the first circle I ever joined. We went out in the woods and we hugged a tree. And I'd never hugged a tree before. And it was the most powerful thing I've ever experienced. I was there and I was hugging it. And all of a sudden, it was like this tree just brought all this energy of how we are one and how I am one with the tree. And that tree has the energy of source flowing through it, just like I have the energy of source flowing through me. And I started to understand that witchiness wasn't this. I think it can, just like anything, okay? Anything in the world can be bad or lower energy, that not bad or good. Let's go lower energy or lower vibration to higher vibration, right? Depending on where the person is in their life. So you were talking, Mitch, about some people grab onto witchcraft and then they start working the darker side of witchcraft. I need to question what kind of trauma, what happened to that person that they feel because it
need
is a
to.
form of control. Like you do have control,
Mm.
you do have power when you are practicing your energy magic
Mm.
and putting those intentions out there. So yes, the
Mm.
moral compass is massive. Like I've done a bit of, people would call it cord cutting, but I call it, there's a hoodoo type magic where you
Mm.
write the person's name down that maybe you want separated from your life a bit. Maybe there's some issues going on that it's been years and years, and it's just like, or, this person's drained a lot from you. And I've done it on a few people in my life, and I've seen it slowly work. But when I've put it out there, spirit has really shown me, you're not doing it for you. You're also doing it for them,
Mm.
Yeah.
because
Mm.
there's something going on in their life that maybe your energy is causing them. Does that make sense to be?
Mm. Mm.
So it's when you're doing magic, it's the good for the all.
Mm.
And if you say, oh yeah, I've done a bit, like Mitch, you've said, I've dabbled in the dark. I know your heart. Like you told me a story, and we can go into that story of a little bit of what you did, some hoodoo type magic, and it worked, but it was good for the all when I think of that story.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
So it might feel like, oh, I'm being infringed on, but when you come, so like at the end of that hoodoo contract that I wrote to break these people free from my life, you write their name down, and then you go the opposite way. You turn the piece of paper around and stuff, and then at the end you write, and I release them with love.
Mm.
And that intention of, I release them with love, even if they've hurt you savagely. It's all about that healing and that forgiveness. Does that make sense? And
Mm.
releasing them, that the spirit will work in their life the way that spirit's meant to work in their life for the highest of good. So that to me is like the power of witchcraft. And I do a lot of candle magic. I love candle magic. Maybe it's because I'm a bit lazy and it's really easy. Like I can just like, I am a lazy, but like I carve into candles manifestations that I want. Does that make sense? And I don't necessarily always have
Yeah.
the color of the candle, so I just put the intention out of what I want, and I like to burn it down every time I do anything that's going to be of like spiritual, like going into circle or anything like that. I always like candles in the background. Just that's my personal thing of allowing spirit, saying, I'm open to you, spirit, to be in this room. I burn a bit of incense because I like the smell, and it changes my perspective a little bit.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So there's a lot of practical things to witchcraft too. But yeah, I question when people go to the dark side, and I don't want people that do have practiced the dark side. Well, it's up to them how they think. But I do question what's happened to you, that you're sitting in that bitterness, that anger, that hatred. Does that make sense? That you want to sit there? And hatred
Yeah,
is all that
putting
are
onto
normal
somebody else.
emotions. All that are normal emotions. So for me, too, and one other thing of like candle magic and stuff like that, it's for my mental health too. So if I've got something going on inside of me, and I'm like really like, it's just playing on me and playing on me, if I write it down and burn it, or I carve it on a candle and get it out of me, does that make sense? And burn it into the spirit realm, that helps me mentally and emotionally to release things out of my body. And that's for me personally how I do magic too, is that it helps my mental health. It helps if I can get obsessive sometimes, like with this move that we did, right? I wanted to move so bad. And I felt spirit saying, yeah, you're going to move, right? And I was following spirit. But it got a bit overwhelming where it became everything. Does that make sense? Where I was like almost, and it was a good thing for me to learn about temperance inside of me, and how like I thought things were healed and they weren't quite healed. Does that make sense? And spirit brought up a lot, and it was hard, but it was good. But when I learned about, like, when I started using the candle magic of just getting it out of me, all my worries, all my strife, picking a color that represented that to me and carving it in there and burning it and getting it out of me, there was a release. And to me, that was beautiful. So I don't
Well,
know
if
your
you think
guys' thoughts.
you're talking a lot about candles, it's interesting because, like, obviously, when we have birthdays, we always light a candle, we make a wish. It's witchcraft. It's the same thing, isn't it? And I do actually use. I'm quite a lazy witch, so I do actually use birthday candles for some of my ritual stuff because they burn quicker.
Yeah.
I've not got time to wait for an hour while
Well,
the
you're not
thing.
supposed to leave them, right? And I'm in a rented property, so like, yeah. How do your
Yeah,
house
so
burn down
often
while I off my
if I need
candle?
a quick,
Magic.
yeah, if I need a quick intention, I'm just like, right, where's a birthday candle? Off we go, sort of thing, because it does the same thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
you don't need to have necessarily. It's nice to have all the tools, but you don't need that. All the tools lie within you, really, don't they?
Well, you were talking about
Mhm.
that the other day, Carly, like people coming to your stand because you sell the tools, right? And people coming to the
Yeah.
stand, it gets a
Yeah.
bit excessive. And you can end up spending
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much money that
Yeah.
necessarily you don't need to. It's about intention. It's about
Yeah. Yeah.
intention. So,
Absolutely.
and to me, it's about building relationship. And I want to free a lot of people. And I know, Carly, this is your heart too, and Mitch, but is to free a lot of people from that feeling of I'm not good enough. I'm not like practicing regularly.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
practice regularly at all. I practice when it comes across my heart to practice. It's not a
Yeah.
forced ritualistic thing for me because I come from a forced ritualistic background. So for me, my
Mm.
witchcraft is partially about that walking in freedom with spirit, and that when I
Mhm.
feel it, I do it. Does
Mm.
that make sense? But it's not a forced thing. So for
Mm.
instance, Halloween, I don't know if I'm going to do anything or not. If I feel the calling at the moment to do it, I will. I miss so many. I like the moon like you do, Carly. And like this year is my year to get the moon calendar, okay? Because I love the moon, but I don't find out things till like a day later because I'm lazy. I sit in the house and I'm not afraid to embrace my laziness, okay? Like I do embrace it. I worked hard for a number of years and I worked my body into the ground and I learned a lesson. So I embrace my rest and my laziness. But I'll hear people say, "Oh, that full moon last night," and I was like, "Oh crap, I missed it." I'm sitting there watching whatever, Grey's Anatomy or some sort of crime program, and I totally missed the full moon out there. And so I want to get a calendar because I feel spirit calling me to be in sync more with how the flows of the energy of the universe are going.
Mm.
And that will help me understand myself and understand people more and stuff. So that's part of my growing in the witchcraft, for me. Like, and so I think it's relationship with spirit, and then that really cool thing of what draws your heart to do, and that's your personal witchcraft.
Mm.
I don't know. That's
Mm.
just my thoughts, and that's my journey so far.
Mm. I mean,
So,
I definitely think sorry, Mitch, go on, you have a
oh,
word.
no,
Uh,
you
I was
go
gonna,
on.
I was gonna say, I definitely think, I mean, talking from a stall point of view, I should be like, no, come and buy all my stuff. But it's not. I also think people having tools is a confidence thing, which I'm all for. If they feel they need the tools to put the force of intention behind what they're doing,
Mm.
to enable them to be able to do that magic, then I'm for that because that gives them the confidence to be themselves. But I also want to say, if people aren't, I don't want people feeling guilty because they're not going, oh, it's Samhain, we've got to do something. Oh, it's Lammas, we've got to do something. It's Ostara, we've got to do something. I think sometimes if you just, and I'm lazy with the best of them and forgetful. One thing I'll find with the full moon, if you miss the full moon, if you sat there and go, oh, it's the full moon, don't matter. You've still got 3 days of good energy to be able to do that. So 3 days before and 3 days after, you've still got a block where you can have that full moon energy. So it's not like you've lost it, or there might be a reason why you didn't need that full moon energy. You may well need the full moon energy for the next one, or you may need the new moon, which is obviously a lot of people call it a dark moon, but it's also dark. The new moon, dark moon is a cleansing energy because you're starting again.
Mm.
So that might be the reason. There'll be a reason, most of the time. But one thing I want to say is people don't want people feeling guilty for not going and doing Samhain's coming up. Oh, I should be doing this. I should be doing that because they see it all out there on social media, because they see,
Most of that's just pretend.
somebody who they hold in great esteem, doing something, or, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. No, it's fine if you haven't got the time. The thing is, us as human beings have a very chocker life. We have things, we have normal life of TikTok, we get up, we go to work, we do other things. We're not there sat at our altars all the time. I think sometimes if you just acknowledge it and go, okay, it's Samhain, and maybe just for 10 minutes while you're sat on the loo having a pee in the morning or brushing your teeth, it's the most simple thing, but you're still putting a good intention in there of maybe holding your ancestors, holding that thought pattern, acknowledging the time of the year, and then getting on with your day. I don't, people shouldn't feel guilty if they're not sat there in front of their altar with their, sycamore leaves and their apples and their memory trees and the whole shebang, and humamaring and sitting out and working out the points to the elements. And it doesn't matter. If you want to do that, brilliant. I admire you for doing that, because I don't have the time. I think the other half might sit there and get worried if I sit there and it comes in and there's candles on 5 points of a star and I'm sat in the middle in the nuddy humamaring. I don't know, it might work. Perhaps I should do it. Might be in for a good night. You never know. Anyway,
talking about that, I thought,
for another.
Is there such a thing as a toilet witch? Because I think I do a lot of my witchcraft and thinking on the toilet.
We could create one. Let's create a bracket.
I'm going to call myself a toilet witch.
I'm going to be mucking out witch, because whenever I'm mucking out.
It's quite interesting you're saying about this, because I normally do like most of my magic when I'm walking the dog. So like I just
you're a dog witch.
That a lot, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm often in the woods or the field, so I'm within that earth energy anyway. And often I will kind of set an intention, and then there'll be a twig or a leaf or something on a branch that gives you like a validation, whether the shaping of it or it's pointing a certain way or whatever. But you do tend to find, like you mentioned earlier with the tree spirits, you do find there is all of that there, and really, Mother Earth is our temple, isn't it, really?
Yeah. But the one thing, relationship with spirits. One thing, we're joking about being a toilet witch and a dog walking witch and a mucking out witch. Our mind states of each of those times are all the same. Yeah. So our mind thought patterns are all calm. We're not going anywhere. And even though we might be physically moving, our mind thought patterns are steady. Do you know what I mean? I'm trying to find the words, but you guys know what I mean, don't you?
It's almost a meditative state. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're still with it. But you're that higher thought pattern. You've stopped the monkey chatter. You're not thinking about what you're having for dinner. You're not thinking about what's on the shopping list. That moment in time, at that point in time, you are being in that moment.
Yeah.
You're not being somewhere else, doing something else, putting the washing on, faffing around. And even though,
Yeah, I found it very interesting that we had a number of people say, well, you're a witch podcast. I want to hear about witchy stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, we've done 3 so far. So we've done tarot and beyond, ego and beyond, and death and beyond. And to me, that's all part of my witchcraft. I don't know about you, but like tarot for me is a tool that I use in my witchcraft to either do shadow work, find out for myself, or I find out I'm helping someone along in their journey, and it's the intention through the cards, spirit speaking through the cards, spirit speaking, or using the cards to speak to the person that's doing the mediumship, to speak out to the person's life and stuff like that. And so there's that intention there with spirit. So to me, that's witchcraft. Ego, important. Does that make sense? Where is the moral compass we're coming from? Where is the baseline that we're coming from in our journey with witchcraft and in our intentions? Like if your intentions is ego, does that make sense? Or is it love and wanting kindness and compassion for all? I want people out there that are questioning, like, I want to hear more about witchy stuff. That is all witchy. Witchy is all encompassing. Witchy is life. Witchy is standing in to me personally, is standing in your own power with spirit. So when we were talking about that with ego and stuff like that, and the confidence. So, and death is part of witchiness.
Sorry, cutting
Go for it,
I was going to say, do you think sometimes that people as well use witchcraft as avoidance to actually sort of to heal, because a lot of people come along, don't they, with witchcraft, and they're sort of thinking,
Bypassing.
I want a spell for this, and then they want that instant fix. And I think with magic, if you're truly doing it correctly, it's not about getting an instant fix. It's allowing you to unpick the, you know, the levels, the layers, the things that need to be worked upon or healed. But through the practice of magic, it can redirect you into the way that you need to go, or it can give you that energy of you know, maybe what you're missing or whatever. But I just feel sometimes people automatically think when they hear witches and witchcraft, they feel, oh, it's easy fixes, you know, things can be repaired, and it's not, is it really?
It can be a
No.
form of spiritual bypassing, they call it. And it's actually a
Yeah.
psychological term that psychologists use called spiritual bypassing, where people use something to not face their own humanity, not face their own issues in life. And they use it as an escapism when it's really a mirror. Just like we said, tarot is a mirror. Does that make sense? Anything kind of spiritual is a mirror for you to look at yourself. And
Yeah,
and it's not to be scared of, it's actually to embrace and love and work with and serve humanity with.
Yeah, definitely. Because like a lot of the time when people come to me wanting, like, say, a love spell, I sort of feel like, what are you really wanting? Because often, you know, I don't personally really delve into love magic because it gets complicated, but often the person has no love for self, and it's like, well, how can you love another if you don't have that love or value for you? So with,
You're also
you know, love
bypassing
magic.
and kind of infringing on that person's personal choice. Because if they're
Yeah, so
not
love
loving
magic for
back, yeah.
me, you know, love magic for me, you can, there are spells to encompass and to find that love within and to bring that to the surface, and then you get that ripple effect,
That's
you know,
cool.
and then it can sort of spill out, you know, in the greater sort of scheme of things. That's just an example, but you hear it often, don't you? And like we were talking earlier about, like, people that are hexing or doing a lot of black magic, where is that really coming from? You know, why are you so offended by someone if they're on a winning cycle? You don't know what they had to go through to get to that winning cycle in their life.
I mean, the thing with the I've actually sort of spoken on it. We'll talk about sorry, I got distracted. Terrible, bad, Carly. We talk about sort of the bad magic side of, or the black magic side of things that you've dealt with, Mitch, because I'd like to hear about that, if that's okay. But it's quite interesting. I've had people that have felt, or somebody has stood in front of them and supposedly put darker magic on them. I also think that sometimes, and it's probably going to ruffle a few feathers, but I do also think that sometimes the intention, it's a bit like the old gypsy coming up to you in the street with the heather wrapped in, you know, cross my palm with silver and I'll give you heather. If you don't, you know, they're putting that intention on that person. If you don't cross the palm with the silver, that you're going to then have negative energy. So that person is then going away, then going, oh God, I'm going to have negative energy. So they're then creating a negative energy that isn't necessarily there. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so somebody who is black magicking is or saying, I'm going to hex you, they're relying on the recipient to go and then drop stuff and create their own negative energy.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because often I always say, like, magic can only harm you if you buy into it, really, you know, and if you vibrate higher than the intention of somebody else, it doesn't really affect you. Having said that, though, I've had it before. So quite a few years ago, we went through a stage with little Oscar where he had to have some medication and we couldn't afford it, so we had to do a GoFund page, and this medication has been really important because it's given him his life back. And I won't say who it is, but I always remember there were these two witches down in Wales, and they had a real issue that I was doing a GoFund page for Oski. They did not like it at all, and it basically, what was happening was Oscar's behaviour was starting to become really erratic with me, but he was fine with Paul. And it turned out that they were using Oscar, or they were sort of harming energetically Oscar to get to me. And I've never had that before, where an animal has actually flipped, and it was really weird. And then I had a really close witchy friend, and, you know, she sort of linked in, she was like, yeah, there's been sort of this not a curse, but a hex or whatever you want to call it, placed on Oscar.
Yeah.
She removed it, and literally as soon as she removed it, he was fine again. It was really weird, but it's like, why would that affect you in the first place? Why would you need to sort of hex when I'm just trying to give a dog a better quality of life?
Well,
You
I
know?
think it comes down to this is psychology, just like how, okay, please. I'm sorry. I'm going to speak it. I'm going to speak it.
Go on.
It's like how we have
Go on.
psychopaths and sociopaths out there that do negative things and don't have the ability to think of the consequences it has on that person's life
Mm.
and the true dire consequences it has on that person's life. You can have that in witchcraft. Sociopaths, psychopaths, they're all in all walks of life. People with mental health issues in all walks of life. So, like I said, everyone that claims to be a witch might not be a healthy, mentally and emotionally healthy witch, and might not have done any inner work at all. Might not even realize there is inner work to do,
I
but
mean,
they
you
use that power and that intention, and not in a high vibrational way.
I mean, you see it quite a lot. I personally don't really work with deities, but you do sometimes see the grandeur when people sort of proclaim that they work with Hecate or Morrigan or whoever it might be. And it's like, I always feel like your strongest magic is your own spirit. So why do we need these higher gods or goddesses? But you do get a lot of people wanting the title of that energy, don't you, sometimes?
Well,
I don't know
yeah.
if you've Carly or both of you, but
Well, like for instance, I've got Callie in the background in two separate pictures.
oh yeah.
And so Callie, to me, I don't worship her at all. She's above my altar, but when I think of gods or goddesses, and I have a number of card decks that are goddesses and stuff like that, I don't worship them. It's the energy that they encompass. Does that make sense? And realizing that those gods are actually a reflection of you. If we are all one, does that make sense? And we're all coming from source. Those are like a reflection of the energy that we can hold and embrace in our own lives. So like for me, Jesus, right? We're getting way off topic here, but I'll just quickly say it. For me, Jesus, I don't worship him anymore because I don't believe he wants to be worshiped. I believe he is a mirror to us of who we are. And he said that over and over and over again in the Bible, but people just do not cling on to that because they think that again brings it that God is out here, is not in here, when Jesus is constantly saying God is in you. You will do greater things than I, he said. You will do greater things than I. So like basically he's a mirror of how we are to be. Does that make sense? Or how like to encompass compassion and love and stuff like that. So these gods, Callie is a mirror of protection, of standing my ground, something I'm not very good at. Does that make sense? Or haven't been very good at in my past, but I have the allowance, the permission to stand my ground. Does that make sense? So for me, that it's not worshiping. I know some people worship them, but for me personally, it's like the encompassing of their energy, finding what their energy is about,
Taking the strength.
and taking the strength from that energy of its permission, almost. Well, not almost, as permission.
Which is really lovely and really respectful that you actually bring it back into the essence of you. Whereas you do get some people that they will literally just wear it as a name badge. Oh, I work with Hecate. Well, what does that really actually mean?
Yeah.
Did you know?
Oh, I know. It can turn into ego again. See, this is all the encompassing that we've been talking about. It can turn into ego. I don't know if they're working with Hecate. I don't know what Morgan looks like. So if they say Morgan's right here by my side, you know what I'm saying? Like I've had that in spirituality. I've had that where people have said so and so and so and so is saying, like some deity or spirit on the other side is saying this, and it's used as a manipulation tactic. And it's like, no, you're really saying that, so just say it. Don't use it that some greater deity is saying it because you want me to behave in a certain way. So again, it's that intention, that motive. I don't understand why those women would want to hex your dog to get at you. My mind doesn't go there. It doesn't understand it. All I see is that person's moral compass is way off.
It was so weird when I found out. And the sad thing was, it's a regular thing that person is known for doing it. in various ways to different
They've had a
people
lot of
through
power
animals.
taken away from them in their childhood, and they're reenacting it in a very vile way as an adult.
I just think it's really, really weird and really kind of shit when you've got a traumatized dog, you're trying to give them a better quality of life. Yes, he has to have tablets, but look at the quality he's had. He wouldn't have had that before.
Yeah. No, it's going on that real low. Does that make sense? Like where
Yeah.
shame in their life has caused them to react that like shame, their powers. We were talking about this the other day of shame being like the lowest vibration. A lot of evil comes from shame, a lot of bad stuff, because like obviously maybe that person's had their power taken away from them in some sort of form of abuse or something in their life. And that's in their mind, that's like how they can get back the revenge and get their power back. So I'm going to use witchcraft, which is very powerful, and that's what I mean is energy. Anyone can use it. And so it's the moral compass of how we use it. We are all witches, even if you don't claim to be witches, because we're all using energy. Every human being is using energy in some form or fashion, and it ripples out beyond them. It's just witches understand the intention. That, to me, gives more responsibility, that you understand.
And I think it's so, yeah. Sorry. I think it's also the tools that we use, that witches use, that sort of, if you want to put us in pigeonholes, that sort of put us in that perspective. So the tools that us as witches use, like wands, cauldrons, fire, the elements and things like that, I think, because obviously we're all under the same brolly. Listening to Lucy talk, I was getting this, we're all under the same brolly. But I think what puts us in that pigeonhole and that terminology, which I hate, is the tools that we use and how we use them, and our elementals and the intentions we put behind them, which put us in that brolly. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm trying to say? So we all work on the same,
what defines them
level.
is the tools that they use. So you're saying what defines a witch is they can step into their witchiness by saying, I use these tools, or these tools and there is many tools. Does that make sense? There's all kinds of tools. But yeah, for me, the deeper, and I think that's what separated. I think we need to do a podcast about witches in the past and what defined a witch in the past to coming into the future, if that makes sense sometime.
Where the terminology witch came from and how it came about.
Because I don't want to step out of bounds with people, but for me, it's all about intention. I'm going to put a trigger warning out there. I'm going to bring up a subject that might be a little bit of a trigger warning. Is some people dabble in sexual magic, they call it. And again, there's intention there. And like what I know of sex magic is that well, first of all, it's your energy inside of you producing an orgasm, which is like probably one of the most powerful energies a human can feel in this, in this body, right? So it's it's putting that intention in the orgasm to manifest something of good out there for yourself or for others. Does that make sense? And it also involves, okay, I'm going to get a little bit bodily fluid, stuff like that, which is because we talk about the elements, we are an element.
Absolutely.
Ourselves. So to me, I haven't dabbled in it much, but I've been learning about it. And I think, wow, it is a very powerful, and some people would say, oh, that's dirty or this or that. And they don't want to take, but sex is one of the most natural things. It is the most natural thing in this world. Right. And to me, it also can be, it can also be it can be a thing that hurts people, but it can also be a thing that heals people, if that makes sense too. So
and also it's quite interesting you're talking about this, because if you think of days of old where we didn't have all this stuff being sort of mass produced that we have now, like cauldrons and bits and pieces, they would have used their natural body, whether it be sex magic or one-on-one stuff or whatever it is you want to do. I've done sex magic before, and it's been some of my best sort of workings, and it's kind of
and the funnest.
The funnest, yeah. But because when you really know your body and how you respond, you can create and use that energy to your advantage, can't you? And like we were talking. Go on.
There's a hell of a lot of power in that. You think how, like you were saying, Lucy, if you can, it's a bit like you get these fancy torches that you go, like, you twist them
Sorry.
Gestures on YouTube. Sorry. Keep it clean.
For those of you that aren't watching the video of this, she was doing.
Go and watch the video. Certain hand gestures.
When I worked in the sex shop, there was things
Twisty
called
torch.
torches.
Behave yourself.
Sorry, guys.
Twisty torch.
Twisty torches.
Twisty torch, but that goes from the wide beam to the narrow beam.
Yeah.
When you're in that amount of energy and you concentrate that amount of energy, sex magic is like that concentrated beam. And it can be, it's like plugging an electric guitar in an amplifier, isn't it? So you think you've got a kick when you're doing normal magic or putting an intention in. You do it when you're at that point of orgasm in sex magic.
Well, that's exactly
proper.
It. That is that energy expelling.
Kicks it out the stadium, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's super spiritual, and I don't think we allow spirit always to be a part of that part of ourselves. Does that make sense? Of being sexual beings, of having that power, and I don't think sex magic has to be with loads of candles in a dark room and it being like something out of an Eagles video from Hotel California or anything like that. Like it can be just the intention of, and if it's two people joining together, the beauty of the intention of why they're doing that and what they want to see happen in the spiritual realm and produce into real life. So, for instance, sex magic can be just producing a child. If you have a husband and a wife, or a male and a female coming together, and that's their intention, the power of that may produce a child. So that's just magic there, isn't it, really?
Exactly.
Yeah, I want to take the taboo off that for people, because it is something that we don't talk about.
People feel it's very dirty, very seedy and everything else, and it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, only when you go to one of Carly's fairs no, I'm joking.
Oh, speaking of fairs.
That's the other fair, right? That's the other fairs I do, the underground ones. Speaking of fairs, Mitch.
Yeah, we'll have to do a little cheeky plug, because you literally brought that up. So this Saturday, if you're in and around Westbury, Wiltshire, we have my witches market and psychic fair, which is happening, where these two lovelies are going to be there as well, doing readings, and you're going to have your stall as well, Carly. And hopefully it's just going to be a fabulous day. So it's free entry, 11 till 4:30. Come along, get involved if you're around.
Exciting times. I'm excited to go. I'm excited to see you guys in the flesh. It's been a while.
Yes. Don't worry, no sex magic. It's fine.
No, I'm not into that anyway. That's not my personal forte. But teach their own. Teach their own. Maybe it's
not that kind of flesh.
Because I have thought about doing. We've talked about this, Mitch, in the past about I have thought for healing purposes of doing they have nude fest and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh my god, the Black and Decker machines would have to come out for that, every serious.
But aside, how empowering would that be?
Well, totally. You are going to get all walks of life. You are probably going to have your pervs there, but then you're going to have your people, the high vibes, that are there for healing and acceptance of body, no matter what it looks like. And that's, to me, what also sexual magic can do, is heal the perceptions of what is sexual in our world, what is considered, we are implanted so much with so much crap of what is body acceptance, what is a nice body, what's not a nice body. Does that make sense? What's good looking, what's not good looking? The reality is there's no definition on any of that. That is just society making that up, and it's changed over the years. If I was back in the 16 or Raphael light years with the redheaded women with the fat bellies and the little tits, that would be me. I'd be one of the goddesses you would see posing as Venus. I would, but that's not in now, and that's not considered good looking now. And so, so it just changes throughout the years, or throughout what society changes with. So there is no definition on that. And I think through kinds of different magics and stuff like that, that's that spirit healing all that. What is beautiful, what is what they consider beautiful. And that's each one of us, no matter what we look like. So
Definitely. But this is
oh,
why
I
you
went
do
off.
get like
Yeah.
people dancing naked under the moon, like you
Oh,
get
I'd
those
love to do
gatherings
that.
and everything,
That's
don't
why I
you?
talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And do we define that as sex magic? Because for some people, just being naked with others, they would see that as that, and other people don't. So I guess
Yeah,
it's how comfortable you are within as well, isn't it? Really.
and it's that intention. Like, is that a sexualized situation, or is that is that just natural?
Mm.
So it all depends on the person's perceptions lead into
Mm.
intentions. Does that make sense? And it's making sure that our
Mm-hmm.
perceptions and working on our perceptions, constantly being in tune with spirit of where do my perceptions of things need to be tweaked and looked at, so that I can see spirit. My intentions in life is I would love to be able to see through spirit's eyes at all times. You know what I'm saying? And see, and I can't, and I don't, and I'm not claiming to. I have little glimpses where it's like mind blowing. And maybe that's why we don't, because it would just be like too much. This
Too
earth wouldn't
much to be
exist.
overload.
Yeah,
Yeah.
too much. I don't think us in our human forms could cope with that.
Yeah.
There's lots that that are not kept away from us, but I think there's lots that our brains can't, as we're talking about headology, and when you were talking about sort of the psychology and physiology of things, it really made me think of the character Granny Weatherwax from Terry Pratchett. If nobody's read Terry Pratchett books with the three witches, you've got to do it. You got to do it. The Granny Weatherwax is the old wise witch, and she's very she looks very Victorian. She's quite sort of a bit straight laced, and I always refer to myself as Nanny Og, which is a short, round, dumpy one that's always got a piping around and a tankard. Sort of a bit like, oh well, let's go on the table and have a dance, that type of thing. But Granny Weatherwax talks about headology and creating magic that way. So helping the other person through using headology, making them believe. But we don't use half of our heads and our perspective of things. If we were fed too much information, our little mental human brains just couldn't cope, could they? They would just like explode.
Yeah.
Which is why we're not shown, or I think sometimes our limits are ourselves.
Oh, totally.
I think if we opened our minds further, we would be shown so much more.
Oh yeah, and that's like I was just thinking of those women that put the hex on Oscar to get to Mitch. What they did shows more about their perception and about who they are as a person than it actually does about the actual hex on the dog. Does that make sense to Mitch?
But also, how kind of dark to go through an animal which is vulnerable and can't almost defend itself just to get to me. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I think they probably, the reason why I'm speaking on looking at it from a witch point of view, the energy link, what we call cords. So that energy link to Oscar is easier because he's not got the protection, the bands, the energy connection is more direct. So they can put up.
That's to me really, really low.
Oh, it's very low, very low. I mean, who would
like that's like putting it on a child or something like that because they don't have. Does that make sense? Like, we're here to protect.
But I mean, it's not right at all. I mean, it's completely and utterly agreement. But if you're working,
if that's your intention, that's how they would do it, isn't it? Essentially.
Yeah. Talk about your hot hoodoo one, Mitch, that you told me about because I was tempted to do it on someone.
I did. Yeah. So when I was living in Martok, sorry if anyone's listening from the Martok area, but I had a beautiful bungalow.
Your neighbors there.
Yeah, I had a lovely bungalow there, but I had these awful neighbours either side. They were dreadful and they were horrible. And one side just hated Oscar because he was barking. He wasn't barking all the time. He's a little Jack Russell. He's going to bark if he sees a bird in the garden or whatever. So their issue was obviously him. And the other side, they didn't like it because I was a spiritualist, a gay witch. I used to have clients over. That was back in the days when people would come to my house. And so they would moan about car parking and everything else. Don't park over my drive, even though it was like a free road. And it was just getting really silly, and it was just making me feel like I couldn't live in my own actual house. So I used to work in a shop. It's not there anymore. It's called like Lady in the Silver Wheel in Glastonbury, and the lady that used to run it, she was heavily into hoodoo magic, and she said, "Oh, why don't you try some hot foot powder, which is quite powerful actually." So I was like, "Okay, I will give it a go. There's nothing left to lose." So you sprinkle it on the doorstep of your, they say, your enemies or your target, and it just deflects the negativity, the problem. So I did this on both sides. So at night, I did it at 12 o'clock at night. I sneaked around and was putting it all in on both their sides. And then I'd say about 2 or 3 days later, all the drama, all the noise, all the bullshit, it just stopped. And it was like the whole house was calm again, not just the surroundings, but the house felt calm. So it definitely worked. And it just allowed us to stay there for as long as we ended up staying. And then we decided to move on, primarily because my dad had a cardiac arrest, but that's a different story. And yeah, it just allowed for things to become peaceful, and the intention was never to hurt them. It was to just stop the noise, stop the bullshit, basically, because I
But
don't
that might have
see
been
why
good
any.
for them too, to take away that obsession they had of
Yeah,
being focused
exactly.
on Oscar's barking, and the other half being focused on your sexuality and the fact that you were doing your
Doing my
passion out
work.
of your house of magic and stuff like that. So yeah,
Exactly. And I just feel like, I never understand why people have an issue with somebody's lifestyle or how they choose to live, because it's nobody's bloody business but the person. I find that alien as a concept, that people would be, triggered or upset by somebody being gay or the color of their skin or how they identify with themselves. It's like, it's none of your business. What harm is it doing? That
exactly.
to me is alien. That is absolutely alien to me.
But I can go into the psychology of that, but I won't.
That's cool. That's a
Sorry,
subject
you
for
guys.
another day,
I've never told
maybe.
you. I have a level 3 in counseling that I took many years ago. And so I love thinking a little bit, going a little bit into the person's trauma and brain and why are they like that? Does that make sense? Understanding from a compassionate, I try to be compassionate. I'm not always, but that's my perceptions that I need tweak. Does that make sense? When that not compassionate side comes out of me, I do try to own it and say, okay, what's going on in me? But yeah, but to me, that all involves in witchcraft, like we said, the intentions of why. For me, that was like, people would say, oh, that's a darker art. I don't think that was a darker art. To me, that was you releasing outside of yourself, going, okay, I'm not hurting anyone by putting this little bit of chili powder or whatever it is on their doorstep, right? But my intentions are it's going back to them. I do not want their crap anymore,
Yeah.
right? So you're releasing that back to them. And and maybe that's releasing too, if spirit's able to put those boundaries up in the house and stuff, releasing them from that obsession that they have of, and people can get obsessed. Does that make sense? And where they just, where they come home and if they hear Oscar bark, it might even be the quietest bark, because they're already angry at that. It just riles it up even more.
Triggers them.
Yeah.
Off they go. Yeah.
And so like that spirit
Absolutely.
going, okay, the intention's been put out there that Mitch wants this to stop. We're going to stop it, but we're also going to stop it for them, so they have some relief. Does that make sense? From being obsessed about things that they don't need to be obsessed about. Energy
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
just not worth exuding to that area. And that to
Yeah,
me,
yeah. So
what
when I
spirits
when I cast that spell and did that spell, I set my intentions, but it was still, I had it with that energy or vibration of, it was done from a place of love. It's not to hurt, it's not to harm them, it's to just set it all free.
anger and love can totally be mixed together too. You can have the same emotions. You can be angry that that person is in that state, and that anger can be pursued to walk in love of, okay, I love them enough and I love myself enough that we need to stop this.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? We need to stop this for their sake and for my sake. And that's why I was saying earlier about like the releasing of people, the cord cutting. I have to make sure that when I'm doing it, that I'm ready to cut that cord. And that for me is a process sometimes. Does that make sense? Of, okay, why am I staying attached to this person? Why Is this person a part of my life? What service are they doing to me? And really going through that. And when I realize it's not a healthy attachment, that it's not just for me, it's for them too.
Yeah.
It's for them too. If I release them, and I have released people and their lives have flourished, like past lovers or, boyfriends and stuff like that. I've released them even after we've broken up, and I've seen them meet partners that are so incredible. Does that make sense? And they're able to be released in that energetic realm where I'm not. And then actually I've had it quite a few times now where that person has come back into my life in a healthy friendship way where I can actually enjoy watching their lives flourish through Facebook or Instagram. Do you know what I'm saying? Where I can see their children being born, and I'm so happy for that person that I was in a toxic relationship with before. That spirit has brought such healing by that release of that energy that we're able to come, and I've seen the full circle, that we've able to come back and really empower each other through our thoughts of happiness towards each other for the lives that we're now leading. And I think that's what magic is really all about. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are.
Yeah, I was
just going to say,
Mitch.
Coming up to the witching hour, just to let you know. It goes quick when you're having fun, doesn't it?
It does.
There's a great saying by
I'm like sitting here stunned. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a great saying by Roald Dahl, and I think it's, those that don't believe in magic will never find it. And with what we've discussed, it kind of goes into all of that a little bit, doesn't it? So with the healing side, if you don't want to be healed, you'll never see that is what's needed. You'll always go searching for a spell that you're never going to get results from because you're not doing the deeper work. So I think that quote is quite powerful, actually.
I agree.
Yeah,
and when you watch like Disney movies and stuff, the evil witch, she's always bitter. She's angry. She's jealous. It's all the negative. Does that make sense? She sees someone else having power and she doesn't want that person to have higher vibrational power.
Yeah.
Because she feels she doesn't deserve it herself.
That is what it comes down to, isn't it, really?
I mean, I think anyone who's practicing witchcraft or in the spiritual life path, as we're all on it, I think however you create your magic and however you come across with that magic, it should all be done as we always say, should all be done for the greater good. As Mitch, or when Mitch does his card readings, if you're not listening to Mitch's readings, where have you been? So it's it should all be done for the greater good. It should all have that good intention behind it. And the original healers, who were then deemed witches, did everything for the good. They were out to help the people, and they were out to heal people. And I think when it gets down to the roots of it, whatever witch you identify yourself as, whatever you do and how you do it, you should do it for good intentions. How you create your magic, as you say, Lucy, is your own personal way, and you can be as extravagant, or you can take it back to the bare roots and pick up a stone and put your energy into that stone or that leaf or that stick. I do, we all do basic stuff as well, but whatever you do, make that intention good and make it for healing purposes and not to hurt and harm.
Exactly.
And I also believe the whole story of as within, as above, so below. What you see on the outside should be on the inside.
Yeah. Integrity. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, that is lovely, you guys. Thanks for joining today. And
thanks for having us again.
Well, we all joined together. I don't know why I'm saying it.
Thanks for having us, Luce.
I say that because I don't want people going, what is this, Lucy's podcast and not Mitch's podcast? Or is this It's all of our podcasts, and we really enjoy doing it, and we really enjoy bringing out different topics to discuss. So why don't we say a lovely love and light? Namaste.
See you all soon, guys.
See you soon.
Bye for now.
Bye.
I need to find the button. Oh, there it is.